Hello, everybody. Welcome to the UFC Vegas 3, UFC on ESPN 11 preview. My name is Danny Segura. You know me, mixed martial arts reporter for MMAJunkie.com. Next to me is Nathan Williams from WAVVES, the homie who will be helping me break down all the action from tomorrow's card. Actually, a pretty decent card here we got going on, like maybe last week's. That wasn't maybe not so great, but tons of good fights here, good storylines as well. And just from an action standpoint, from top to bottom, I mean, I feel like I'm looking forward to every single fight here. I don't know. I don't know how you're feeling about it.
Well, first, I'd like to say that my buddy Dana White says there's no such thing as a bad card. So I liked last week's card.
I mean,
Uh,
it's better than nothing for sure. And look, I never hated on it. I never went publicly and like tweeted. I know a lot of MMA media and other people like went online and were like, "Yo, this card sucks." Like, dude, we're in a pandemic. Like, what do you expect? Like more than half of the roster is locked because it's international fighters. And there's so much going on right now that sports are not even around. So like, just to be thankful that these things are going on, like it's nice. So I'm not gonna hate on it, but like, no, it wasn't. I don't know. I mean, those fights. Look, I'll watch them. They're fine, but
Off the top
certainly,
of your
I don't
head,
think I was stoked for them.
can you remember three fights from last week off the top of your head?
Yeah. Well, the Cynthia Calvillo, Jessica
Jessica.
I fight, Marvin
Oh, okay.
Vettori, wrecking Carl Robertson,
Yep.
and you got me.
It
uh,
was it was fun. Yeah, this card is definitely better. There's more storylines. There's a higher level of just general mixed martial arts, and
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, that's the thing about this card. One is I feel like you get a little bit of the Hannah Cyphers fight. Okay, I remember that one.
Hannah
Uh,
Cyphers.
yeah,
The
they'll come back. By the way, I just pitched like I think I texted Luke Thomas right after that fight was over. I'm like book Hannah Cyphers versus Priscilla Cachoeira right now. That's the fight to make. Low key, it is though. But
That'd be
anyways,
fun.
yeah, it'd be fun. But yeah, I feel like one, we're getting a little bit more world class MMA here. Like we're getting some guys that are at the top. I mean, Curtis Blaydes is in title contention. Same thing with Alexander Volkov. So we're getting fighters that are perhaps a little bit farther along their careers. And then on top of that as well, I think storylines, there's a lot at stake here. Whereas the other fights is like, all right, you win this, and where does it take you exactly? Whereas here, we'll talk about this in just a second. There are guys that could very well go on to fight for the title. I don't know, maybe depending on how they look and all that. So definitely a lot on the line here. So let's just get right into it and discuss this fights, man. So the main event is a pretty good fight. It is a heavyweight bout between Curtis Blaydes and former Bellator champion Alexander Volkov. Big heavyweight bout, but the heavyweight division is kind of weird right now because for one, well, we finally got the trilogy booked between Daniel Cormier and Stipe Miocic, so that's good, but that's still pending, and it's supposed to go down in August. Also, we're still in a pandemic. We don't know how this virus is going to go and where it's going to go, so we're still kind of hesitant on if that event is even going to go down. And then on top of that, you got Francis Ngannou just destroying pretty much everybody that they put in front of him and pretty much making a case that he's the clear number one contender. And then you got this fight. So it seems a little bit to me that, yes, it's a big fight. Yes, in normal circumstances, the winner here would probably fight for the title, especially if it's Curtis Blaydes. But given the state that we're in, things don't look good for Curtis Blaydes here.
Well, if you listen to some of Curtis Blaydes' recent interviews, I think he's under the impression that DC Stipe, regardless of the winner, they're both going to retire. Um, he said something to the effect that he had heard rumblings that Stipe, win, lose, or draw, was going to retire as well. So I don't know if that's true or not. Obviously, DC's come out and said that this is his last one. But the real problem there for Blaydes, the way I see it, is, which is pretty obvious, is the number one contender right now for heavyweight is Ngannou, and he's 0-2. So if Ngannou is next, then that sort of leaves Blaydes in a tough spot, right? But obviously, first he's got to get through Volkov, and I feel like people are just thinking that Blaydes is going to take Volkov down at will and sort of have his way with him. And I don't know if that's necessarily I don't know if that's how it's going to go down, because he's long, he's a great
He's a
striker.
big
This is
dude.
obviously yeah, this will be a real test for Volkov, but I don't think that anybody should be underestimating him.
Yeah, certainly. Certainly, he's a game fighter here, and so to your point, Curtis Blades does seem like he's kind of thinking that either fighter between Cormier and Stipe Miocic could very well retire at the end of UFC 252, regardless of the outcome. And certainly, there's something to be said there. I mean, Miocic is 37 years old, and Daniel Cormier is 41, so they're pretty high up there. And Miocic has taken, he's got over 20 fights, over 20 heavyweight fights in his career. So he's taking a bit amount of damage, even though he's dished out probably way more. But yeah, you do wonder, especially the run that he's been in, how much is there for him to achieve, right? Like that big fight with Daniel Cormier is going to be pretty big. And after that, I mean, maybe you could say the Francis Ngannou fight could be pretty big, but it'd be a rematch. You already beat him, so how much is there to gain there as well? So yeah, but also to your point, like if they were to retire and Curtis Blaydes were to win, yes, he's 0-2 against Ngannou, but like, what else do you do? I feel like everyone's has a loss besides Cormier and Miocic. Everyone has a loss to Ngannou at this point.
Well, that to me. That's when something like John Jones coming up. That's where you make these mistakes in booking fights. That's when you sort of, I mean, understand whatever the pandemic and stuff, but that's when those things really come into play, because you have this problem at heavyweight, which has historically been your biggest, most important money making division. And you sort of, it had some steam, at one point, like maybe 6 months ago or something, and it seems like it's just sort of starting to lose it again. But a guy like Curtis Blaydes is young, right? He's 29 years old.
Mm-hmm.
He's got time, and I don't see him slowing down anytime soon. So I don't think you have to. I don't think there's any reason to just push him to. I don't think that if he wins this fight, even if he wins it emphatically, he's getting a shot at the title.
Yeah.
Doesn't make sense from a match making perspective, sadly.
Yeah, I think that has to go to Francis Ngannou. He kind of, yeah, I mean, what he's done already. I mean, even before the Jairzinho Rosenstruck fight, I think he already deserved the title shot, and then he takes out probably the guy that could steal that from him. He definitely getting the next shot no matter what happens there. So we'll see what's going on as far as the matchup itself, and you kind of mentioned it. We were talking about Curtis Blaydes here almost as if he already won the fight, but he does have to fight Alexander Volkov, former Bellator champion, a guy that has had pretty good results within the UFC. Are people underestimating this guy way too much? What are your thoughts on that?
What's the line? Let me see what the line is. I don't know if let's see. So, jeez, Blaydes is a minus 400 in this fight.
Wow, that's pretty big for heavyweight
By
too. Damn.
By those lines, I'd say yes. That's the line should not be that wide. Do I think Blaydes will win? I do. I think that the superior wrestling, not even just the superior wrestling, his grappling in general. Even if I mean, I know Volkov has pretty high level jiu-jitsu. He doesn't have to use it very often just because of his division. You don't see a ton of jiu-jitsu in the heavyweight division, but I think that Blaydes is the best grappler at heavyweight right now, by far. And I think that even if his jiu-jitsu isn't high level, his wrestling is so high level that he can just keep a top position. His ground and pound is amazing. And once he gets the fight there, he's one of the few people at heavyweight who can rinse and repeat and has the cardio to do that. And that's, that's reminiscent of someone like people make this comparison with anybody that is a dominant wrestler now, but it's Khabib-esque. Like when you
Yeah.
can do that, you control where the fight goes and you can just keep people down and just throw elbows at them. That's why that line is the way it is.
That's true, and I think the comparison to Habib, I mean, it often gets thrown around, but I think it's a fair one because if you look at Blaydes' game, and if you're someone that's wrestled or that's done jujitsu, like he very much fights like like a fighter from the lighter weight classes. He uses a lot of wrist rides and
Yep.
certain techniques that are seen often, used by Habib and just people in the lower weight classes, rather than your typical let me just clinch up and toss you heavyweight type throw. So yeah, certainly a good comparison there. And I am surprised about the lines. I'm looking at them right now. Minus 400 Curtis Blaydes, plus 300 Volkov. I thought Blaydes was maybe going to be like minus 200, maybe a little more, but minus 400
That,
is
that
it's quite a lot.
Yeah, the line, it looks like the opening was minus 225, and that's gone up to minus 400. So I'd imagine that some people will start to lay some action on Volkov as it gets closer once that line gets a little bit bigger, because plus 300, I mean, even if he loses, it's not a bad bet if you want to just lay some there just to do it. But for me, that line is too big for
Yeah.
Blaydes.
And also for Volkov has only lost one fight in the UFC, and that was against Derek Lewis, a fight you could argue he won right till the very last second, which was just heavyweight action. Like that kind of things happen at heavyweight. But other than that, like he's pretty much had a perfect run within the UFC, and he's beaten some solid guys in the process. I mean, Timothy Johnson, he's over at Bellator now. Maybe not the greatest heavyweight, but certainly solid. Roy Nelson, a veteran. Stefan Struve, Fabrizio Werdum, former champ. Greg Hardy, probably Greg Hardy's the weakest opponent he's faced, I think, in the UFC.
I still don't know. I still don't know with Greg Hardy. I watched that fight again last night, and I still don't. I mean, he's just such a beast athlete. But like, definitely the most impressive one to me was Verdum. I remember when I watched that fight, I thought Verdum was just a lock. I think I might have bet on Verdum too. I probably lost some money there, but Volkov is impressive, and he's definitely not somebody that you can count out. And I think that people maybe have already counted him out, because when I hear these interviews and people talk about it, especially with Blaydes, they're talking about how Blaydes, what is he going to do after this?
Yeah,
And that's always that can get you in trouble.
that's true. Yeah. So we'll see. And as far as Volkov, I mean, I just mentioned, that one loss to Derek Lewis. That's his only loss in the UFC. And again, it was pretty much he won the entire fight, very much like the Jairzinho Rosenstruck over Reem fight. Do you
That's
think
what
a
I
win here over Curtis Blaydes could maybe put him in the same spot and kind of just switch places with Blaydes, where, if both guys retire, the guys that are fighting for the title, maybe he gets pit against Francis
got it.
Ngannou? Do you think that's possible?
I mean, that would be a cool fight, Ngannou and Volkov. Uh, really, Ngannou versus anybody is fun. Um, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't really know. To your point, like he has his UFC tenure has been perfect, except for 10 seconds of round 5 against Derek Lewis. So I don't know what you do. It's a little bit of a mess at heavyweight. But I'm sure if whoever wins this, I'm sure that's their post-fight interview. I'm sure that's their call, is that they want a shot. Whether that happens or not, I don't know.
All right, so official pick, who you got, and are you dropping any money on this fight?
No, the line is too big for me to drop any money, because I'd have to go with Blaydes, and if you have to bet $400 to make 100 on Blaydes, it's just that it's not a No, it's not worth it.
By the way, the for the what propositions right on that fight, there is a bet that says the fight does complete 1 round for minus 250. That's pretty good.
That's not bad. Jeez, even minus 250. I mean, so people are thinking that Blaydes is just going to immediately end this fight.
Basically.
I could see it going. I could see it going 3, 4 rounds,
Yeah.
and then Blaydes finally taking him out. But it's heavyweight. I don't love betting on heavyweight fights in general because of 4 ounce gloves, because of one punch can change a fight, end a fight. So
Yeah.
yeah.
So yeah, I'm gonna go with Blaydes as well. I think I think he's probably the more proven commodity. I think he's got like probably the more high profile wins, and yeah, I mean besides his fights with Francis Ngannou, I think the guy has had a stellar run in the UFC. I mean his performances have been great. It's just when you match up with Francis Ngannou, you might be a way better fighter, but that power is enough to override just about any skill set really. So
Blades has Blades has one of the more impressive uh, records, not just records, but just who he's faced and who he's beat.
yeah,
Like we said, like minus those two Ngannou fights. Um,
those have been his only 2 losses ever. The Ngannou
yeah,
fights.
I mean, we forget about it because some of these people he just posterizes and makes look stupid. But Alistair Overeem, Mark Hunt, Junior Dos Santos, Olenek. I mean, these are these are hard wins, and he makes them look like nothing.
Yeah.
Justin Willis. I remember when that Justin Willis fight was going, and Justin was talking shit the whole time. That yeah, I don't know. The way I see it, Curtis Blaydes on this one all day.
Yeah, for sure. All right, so let's talk about the co-main event now. Just a reminder before we go into that, we'll be taking your questions at the end of this. So we'll be breaking down the co-main event and maybe just highlight another fight that we're looking forward to, and then after that is it's game for you guys. So whenever you guys want to ask questions, you can throw them now on the live chat, and then we'll get to it in the later part of this video. So if you want to ask something, just throw it in the chat, and we'll get to it in a bit. So let's move on to the co-main event, a fight I'm looking forward to a lot. I interviewed recently Shane Burgos leading up to this fight with Josh Emmett. It's a featherweight bout. Not the biggest featherweight bout. It's not a title eliminator or anything like that, but it's still involving two guys that are in the top 10, two guys that show a lot of promise, maybe more Shane Burgos. I think Josh Emmett obviously has been around a little bit more, but I think even then, Josh Emmett's at a spot where we're still kind of figuring out where exactly he is. For example, you look like a veteran like Jeremy Stevens. You know exactly where he is in the division and kind of what he can do and what he can't do. Whereas Emmett, you see him some fights kind of have brilliance that he could reach a top 5 level, and then he has some setbacks, and he's kind of still figuring it out. So I would say still two promising featherweights. And yeah, the winner here would definitely be in a good spot in the featherweight division. Again, not probably challenge for a title, but certainly a lot closer to it than now. First of all, what are your thoughts on this booking? Shane Burgos, obviously a prospect coming up. Was this the right fight for Burgos?
Oh yeah, for sure. For Burgos, this is a great fight. What did I do here? Yeah, great fight for Burgos. Emmett, I mean, this is sort of one of those fights for Emmett that's like it could be a scary fight, right? Like if it's weird because it's almost like feeding Emmett to Burgos, but like it's Josh Emmett is still young in this division. He's not a gatekeeper.
Yeah.
He still, I think, has not reached his full potential. I think he's got some of the biggest power at 145. So I think Burgos has more to gain, though, with this fight. I'd say that.
Yeah, certainly. But I think, if Josh Emmett were to get a big win here, is like, all right, like I think it puts it puts some kind of again. I don't think he's falling into a gatekeeper label like you said. I think the mix between his wins and losses kind of makes it tricky to label him as a gatekeeper. But I think if he beats Burgos, it's definitely a stamp. Like, yeah, I'm not a gatekeeper. Like, I'm definitely one of the top guys here. Like, so I think it's important in that sense because he is 35 years old. He's been in the featherweight division again, not as long as some of the other guys, but long enough where a loss here could maybe, bring him down that path and kind of be labeled as a gatekeeper. So I do think it's like, even though there's not a lot to gain, I think it's very important for his career here.
I think who's he lost to besides that Jeremy Stevens fight?
Desmond Green via split decision.
Okay.
But yeah, if you look at his previous fights, I mean, he beat Mirsad Bektic. That's a guy that's a prospect as well. If he beats Burgos, he's basically in a position where it's like, all right, I'm clearly better than all these young guys coming up. Like, put me in there against a top 5, a top dog, and let's see what's up.
Yeah, are these guys ranked? Are they top 10, top 15?
Burgos and Emmett, yeah,
Yeah.
I think Burgos is 8, and Burgos might be 10 and Emmett 8. I think that's where it is.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a fun fight. And like you said earlier, like it's not the guy is going to get a title shot or anything like that right after it, but it has, I think for Emmett, right, like round 1 is going to be big for him. I think he, just because of the power in his hands, to just come out and try and put him away real quick. But like the Shane Burgos is so fun because he's such a durable guy, and now you've seen a couple of times he sort of faced adversity, like what was it, that Makwan Murakami fight?
Yeah,
was that who it was? Where it looked a little sketchy
Burgos?
round 1, and he sort of just weathered that storm and took over later. So it'll be really interesting to see how this one goes.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be, and just stylistically, I think it's going to be a great fight. I think, Emmett is a very good wrestler, good pressure fighter, and has shown to have some knockout power and good striking as well. And Burgos, I mean, his striking is ridiculous. He's got tons of power, super rangy for the division. He's like weirdly long. I don't know how tall is that guy? That guy's pretty big for featherweight.
He's only 5'9", but he seems way longer than he actually is. I don't know what his reach is, but he's not a super tall guy.
Yeah, no, he's 5'11", Burgos, according to Wikipedia. But yeah, he just seems enormous. Like, his reach just seems ridiculous. He has a 75-inch reach, apparently. 75 and a half.
Yeah.
But yeah. So, and I think
that fucking, it says that Emmett's 5'5" here, so that is quite a difference.
Dude, Emmett cannot be 5'5".
Yeah, that's fucked up. But that's what it says right here. Tail of the tape: 145 pounds, 70-inch reach, 5'5".
What are you looking at right now?
UFC on ESPN, featherweight bout.
Oh, UFC. I wouldn't. Wikipedia says 5'6" and a half. I think that's like a. I think that's more accurate.
All right,
certainly not above 5'9" or 5'7". I think that's like the limit where they put at Team Alpha Male. But anyways, it's gonna be a great fight. Let's look at the odds here because I know you like to bet.
Yeah, this is gonna be close to a pick'em fight, I'd imagine. Shane Burgos is probably a little bit of a favorite here.
Burgos is minus 155, Emmett plus 125.
Yeah,
seems fair,
that's
right?
Right. Yeah, I would look at something along the lines of bet like for that fight to end within a round or something like that. That would be what I would go for here. Yeah. Because I do think Emmett can end this fight early if he lands. And I don't think that's out of the realm of possibility. Yeah, Emmett plus 120. Yeah, it's basically still a pick'em fight.
Yeah.
For me, that's the most interesting fight on this card.
Yeah, I would say so. I think, we know what Curtis Blaydes brings if he wins. Right, first of all, it's a tough fight. We'll see if he does win, but if he does get past Alexander Volkov, we know that like we already kind of know what he brings to the table and what he's able to do. Whereas Burgos, I mean, he's still a guy that's coming up, a young guy. I really do think his ceiling is very high. I look at him and Cater as the guys that are 4 or 5 years from now, they're going to be like the solid established contenders that are going to rule that division. I mean, I really do think he's the future at 145. So we'll see. I mean, all these fights, and he said it himself when I interviewed him. You can check out that interview on MMA Junkie. He was basically like, I'm putting pressure on myself because yes, a win's good, but I also have to like make a big statement. And he's like, I know that sounds cliche, but like, I'm here to stay and I'm here to become something big at 145. And to do that, I can't just get by these guys. I actually got to knock them out and do something impressive here. So I believe him when he says all that, and I really do think he has a high ceiling in the sport.
I think so too. Saying his name next to Calvin Kattar means that means a lot to me because in my mind, Calvin Kattar is the guy at 145.
Yeah. I mean, they fought and they had a pretty. I think they had a fight of the night. They had a pretty.
Did they fight?
Yeah, they fought a while back, and I remember looking at that fight. Those two guys, I've kind of eyed them out and be like, all right, these guys are the future for quite some time. He fought him in 2018. It was his third fight in the UFC for Burgos.
Oh yeah,
and it was a fight of the night. It was back and forth. It was fun, and then Burgos ended up losing in the third round via TKO. But I even asked him that. I'm like, you see that fight as like, okay, we're definitely revisiting that in the future. And he's like, oh yeah, I'll see him down the line at some point.
220. Who was that? Oh wow, Stipe Ngannou. That was the card.
Yeah.
Yeah. Crazy.
Rewatch that fight at some point.
Dude, I'm definitely gonna rewatch that. For some reason I don't remember it at all.
Yeah, I mean that card was pretty stacked, and they were 2018. I mean they were kind of very young in their careers. Like they weren't as notable as they are now. So it's an easy fight that kind of that's easy to forget. But it went down.
It's crazy looking back at this. DC fought Vulcan, and Stipe fought Ngannou.
No time.
And now we've got DC Stipe 3.
Yeah, who knew? All right, so at this point, they're I think these two obviously being the main and co-main event. These are obviously the main fights. I think there's more at stake in these fights than any other fight. On the card. But just real quick, what other fights or fight are you looking forward to, and why?
Okay, let's see what we got here, baby. So I'd say the next one for me is Jim Miller and Roosevelt Roberts. I've been super high on Roosevelt Roberts since I saw him on. It wasn't Dana White's Looking for a Fight. Contender Series, one of those things that he debuted on.
Yeah, Contender Series.
I just think his hands are super crisp. I know I think his background is Muay Thai and Jiu-Jitsu, but he's got such good range, such good boxing, and he just seems calm. It's one of those guys that doesn't seem like he really gets. He doesn't really have the same type of. I'm sure he has nerves. I mean, you're getting into a fight, but he seems strangely calm for going into a cage and fist fighting somebody.
Yeah, and that just 26
goes a long way in MMA. And Jim Miller, obviously the legend, a little long in the tooth, but always puts on fun fights. So that would be my pick.
Yeah, and I think it's a great fight for Roosevelt as well because, Jim Miller is not like you're just getting name value here. I mean, the guy, even though he's older and, he's fought, for a very long time, he can still put wins together, and he's not a guy that, I think people definitely acknowledge he's in his later stages, but I don't think people see him as washed up as maybe other fighters.
No, he's not washed up at all, and he still cracks. I mean, if he catches you clean, he'll knock you out. Yeah. And he's aware. He's got a high fight IQ. That could be a really fun fight. He's tough as shit too. So I don't think that you know, Roberts will just take him out right away. I do favor Roberts in that fight, but also think Guida Bobby Green for the storyline is fun, just because somebody asked Bobby Green if there was any sort of beef with Clay. I think in reference to the Diaz brothers or something like that, and I don't know. It's just that's it. Anything that could potentially be sort of a grudgy sort of fight, I'm down for.
Yeah, I think there's some beef there, but I don't remember the story. Because I've been on furlough this week, I've been like, I mean, I've been paying attention to the news and headlines, obviously, but the fact that I'm not working and actually like, doing this as my job, like definitely a little bit less. But yeah, I think there's something to that. I was actually gonna highlight that fight as well, but even aside from the beef, I always think Bobby Green is like super exciting fighter. I think his boxing's great. I think his style's fun, and I've always said this. I'm surprised he's not more famous, or the UFC doesn't push him a lot more, because I think he's really along the lines of a Nate Diaz, along the lines of a Jorge Masvidal. I mean, the guy's street. I remember
Yeah.
one time at a I forgot what fight it was, but like he showed up with like a purple suit, with like a wide open neck, and then he was talking about how he had like, I think like 10 kids and like 3 different wives, and like the dude's just a personality, and
Man,
yeah, so he's just
wrapped
like,
up, Bobby Green.
yeah, Bobby Green is, he's real. So um again, I'm surprised why he doesn't get pushed a little bit more. I mean, I think he could very well be along the lines of a Masvidal and Nate Diaz. Obviously, he needs to win. That's been his issue, but he's also been paired against guys that are tough, and I don't think he's ever been given like an easy matchup.
Yeah. Well, if he can make a statement here, maybe that'll push him towards something uh, a little more interesting for this fight, for
Yeah.
this next fight.
And another fight I'd like to highlight, always Roxanne Modafferi. I always love watching her fights against Lauren Murphy. That's gonna be fun. Modafferi, given now this has changed because she's gotten kind of jacked. I don't know if you've seen her socials.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, she's getting swole. She's been stepping up on her strength and conditioning program. But prior to getting swole, it was always fun watching like kind of like a nerdy, not so athletic fighter like have success against like very tough opposition and professional fighters. Although she's a professional fighter herself, obviously, but yeah, it's always kind of fun looking at someone that perhaps doesn't have the advantage, the athletic advantage, work their way around those issues through technique. So always enjoy watching her fights.
Yeah, Roxy, been at it for a long time. A fellow nerd, appreciate that. Um, I don't understand why this card is, or why this fight is buried so deep on the card.
Yeah,
The second fight of the prelims.
yeah,
This has big. These, I mean, Lauren Murphy and Roxy Modafferi. This is big for their weight class. This
it
is
is.
not like some random fight.
I mean, Roxy's coming off a win over Macy Barber, who is considered the future of 125 pounds, right?
Yeah, and Anatina and Antonia
Antonina.
Shevchenko, whatever, Shevchenko's sister, Antonina. Yeah, yeah. There we go.
Dude, yeah, I think if she's able to pair a few wins together, I mean, they can play that rivalry. Like, yo, I beat up your sister. Like, what's up? I think she might have
Yeah,
handed her first professional defeat.
yeah, you're right. She did, and they did. They just did the sort of sister thing too, right? With who was it? Blonde fighter.
But yeah, no, but that was reversed though, which I don't think it works
Yeah,
that way. Like, it was, she fought Valentina, and now she's getting paired up against Antonina, or she beat
yeah,
Antonina. My bad. Recently.
yeah. She beat Antonia.
Yeah. So I guess that's always nice to, like, maybe when you're trying to get a rematch with the champ, like, hey, I got a win over your sister.
I beat up your.
Um,
Yeah, that's pretty good. I like that.
yeah, I like that storylines. I interviewed Peter Queally like literally, when was this? Like days. This was on a Monday, and like this was on a Monday after UFC 248.
Uh
Here
huh.
in New York City, right before everything hit the fan, right before like shit hit the fan, and this whole pandemic kicked off. That week, I think the next day, like USA Today closed its offices, and I'm like, okay, this is pretty serious. And then I went home. and I was taking the subway, and then there was like some dude like all wobbly, and he looked like he wasn't feeling well, and then he just throws up all over the floor, and everyone's like, oh, and then you just hear some dude in the background yell Corona, and then everyone just runs out of the car. It was crazy. But anyways,
Oh,
before this whole shit hit, I remember interviewing Peter Quilly, and he's like, "Yeah, Benson Henderson versus Michael Chandler is labeled as #1 contender, but what happens um, when I beat is it Patricio or Patricio? I always confuse them. Who's the older one?
uh, Patricia.
Patricio's the older one, right? Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So what happens when I knock out his brother, Patricio? Who's the #1 contender then? You know, there's definitely something to that, man. Do you have any siblings?
Yeah, I have a few siblings,
Older or younger?
older and younger. Older
Okay.
sister, younger brother, younger sister.
Oh, all right. Yeah. So I only have one older brother, and I mean, I don't know how your relationship is with him, but like, if anyone like fucks with my brother, like, dude, I don't care. Like, I'll fight whoever.
Yeah, and imagine, I mean, that was the Michael Chandler thing with the Pitbull brothers has always been the one of the most interesting storylines in Bellator for me.
Yeah. I mean, he knocked out his brother literally in front of him, and then like rubbed it on his face. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
something for
pointed
sure.
and but then he got back. I mean, he went back and knocked Chandler out just recently.
Yeah.
Or not recently, whatever. That was like a year ago now.
Yeah. All right. So with that out of the way, let's take the questions. You guys have been writing a few questions on the chat, and just a reminder, if you just tuning in or you didn't hear earlier, we'll be taking your questions. So feel free to drop anything on the live chat, and we'll answer it. Obviously, could be regarding these fights, but really anything goes here. So now is the time. All right. Dars Vong Nang. Not really a question, but says, blaze it up, Waves. You got the jewel there. Or is that a vape pen?
Yeah. It's a vape. We got a jewel in here somewhere too. But yeah, we're blazing it up. We're blazing
Nice,
it up for
nice,
sure.
nice.
I can't smoke on your YouTube, right?
I mean, it's my personal one. Probably. I mean, I think it's probably chill. There we go. Let's see here. All right. Marcos Aceves. Shouts out to this guy. He's always asking cool shit. He says, "Hola, Ani. Happy Friday. Could you really call that an island? Are you getting a Fight Island T-shirt for yourself?" So, because of my media duties, I can't, I mean, some people do it, but I don't like rocking. Like, I've gotten like free UFC gear and stuff like that. I usually just give it away. But I don't like rocking like, you know, promotional gear, because I don't think it's, I mean, it's not like the worst thing I think you could do your job and rock, a promotions gear, but still, I don't know. I just have like a weird thing where I don't like rocking like a promotions gear, like a fighter's shirt as well. Like, maybe I come off as biased or whatever. But anyway, so yeah, I'm not getting a Fight Island T-shirt, but are you?
What was the end of that? You cut out a little bit.
Oh, I said I'm not getting a Fight Island T-shirt, but are you getting one?
No, I'm not getting a Fight Island T-shirt because uh, although it is an island, it's not. I mean, this was such a good. This is just a great it's one of Dana's better promoter bait and switch things that we've ever seen. I mean, just totally.
Wolf tickets.
Yeah, I mean, we like when he was talking about it, obviously, like the way that they made it seem, even the way they made the shirts, right, with the palm trees and the
No.
water and all that stuff. There's no palm trees on Yaz Island. This is like the desert. This is a man-made island. The UFC was just there. I think they've been there like
Twice.
6 or 7 times.
Well,
Twice.
Yas Island
Five.
specifically twice. UFC 112 and then the UFC 242 with Habib.
Yeah. No. Hats off to Dana for selling this thing, but no.
Yeah, no, I'm. yeah, the whole Fire Island concept was a bit of a dud because like one, I was always I knew this was coming. I knew in some sort of way we were going to be disappointed because I don't know. I just had a feeling. And then like the way he's like throws out like facts out there, like they're always like I don't know. They always have like a certain. He always restricts on certain saying certain things or revealing certain information, which kind of makes you think like. I mean, if you go back and you look at his stuff, for the most part, there's been a few instances where you're like, all right, you definitely like said things that weren't true, but he also like you can also be like, well, no, he definitely says things in a way that you can spin them as like, oh no, well, it's still an island and this and that, right? Like he doesn't go too much into detail, but he did say on an interview with TMZ that there was going to be an octagon on the beach, and that's obviously clearly not happening. So yeah, wolf tickets right there.
Wait, but didn't he say he was still going to do that?
I think they're just gonna build it and maybe
Like,
like like in between shots when like I don't know the UFC comes to New York and they're at MSG and then they show like a shot of like the Empire State Building. They're like, we're in New York City. I think they might like use that type of like B-roll shot and then show an octagon on an island to like spice things up. But this thing's going down in an arena, and they
right,
tell
right,
them, is it gonna be outdoors at least? And he's like, no, I'm scared of like the outside like the weather factors and this and that. So it's really just gonna look like any regular event we've seen.
right. I mean, but which I never was under the impression that people were going to actually be fighting outside. Like, what was the promotion where they actually did that jungle fights? Is that right?
Maybe I think there's a promotion called Fight Islands actually,
Oh,
and
really?
they actually have fights on the beach if I'm not mistaken.
Well, I never thought that it was going to be outside, right? Like, there's so many things to think about for putting something like actually on the beach, like the sun, the water, the sand, like all of these things don't seem like they make a lot of sense. Um, but I think Dana said at some point that they were going to have an octagon outside for just like training or
Training, yeah.
something, which like the optics of that are kind of cool to just like sort of tie it all together. But in the end, it's the same as any other fight that they've been doing recently. To me, the only difference is obviously we can see some of the international fighters
Yeah,
go, so
that's gonna
that's
be
cool.
nice. But hopefully aesthetically they do something to it, like maybe make the canvas blue or something like that. Like the WEC one, ocean.
Yeah, that's cool. I
Maybe
like
throw
that.
sand on the walkout, so maybe not exactly on the walkout, but on the sides. Have some, Abu Dhabi's got money. Bring some fake palm trees and put them around so you can see them in the walkout. I don't know.
Have like, some crack some coconuts in the corners in between rounds. Drink some
Right, right.
coconut
Instead
juice.
of water bottles, like be like coconuts. That'd be kind of sick. Yeah. Um, let's see what other questions are around here. You would like to see him fight on. Okay. Amy Wee asking a cool question here. Anyone from this card you would like to see on Fight Island? We've seen guys, I mean, just take like Brian Kelleher. I mean, Roosevelt, I think he fought pretty, like fairly soon, like fairly recent, right? So we've been
Yeah.
seeing guys like just take back to back fights during this climate. So, a turnaround to Fight Island is obviously a possibility. Any person that you would like to see, I mean, Fight Island is again like we just said, it's going to be just like any regular event. So I don't think she's saying, do we want to see somebody in the circumstances of Fight Island, but do we want to see someone bounce back quick and get back on the horse? Anybody on this card that you would like to see have a quick turnaround?
I want Roosevelt Roberts to do some quick work with Jim Miller and make it 3 because he just fought Brock Weaver,
Yeah.
didn't get
Brock Weaver,
hurt at all. If he can do something impressive with Jim Miller and then turn around and fight again on Fight Island, 3 quick wins, I think that does wonders for his career. And also, the man keeps making money. That's good.
yeah. I think Bilal Muhammad. I'd like to see him because he's got some good wins, and if he can benefit from maybe a big opportunity, maybe taking on another fight or just a big name opponent, I think he can build something off and with quick succession, kind of pull off a Durinho Burns and make a big name in at 170 just in no time. So I think that's a guy and given his style, I think he could pull it off.
Yeah, we didn't really talk about that fight at all, but I love Bilal Muhammad,
Yeah,
and he's had a couple of tough fights, but he's back in the winning circle, and I think that this could be good for him.
yeah, yeah. Shouts out to Bilal. I also interviewed him recently on MMA Junkie, so you can check that interview out as well on their YouTube page. And yeah, he's I think he's seven. If he wins this fight, he's gonna be 7-1 in his past 8 fights, which is pretty damn good.
Yeah, and the
Um,
only guy he lost to was Jeff Neal.
yeah, exactly. And Jeff Neal's a killer.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. Also, do you know what exclusive 773 is by any chance?
Do I know what is?
Exclusive 773. It's a store.
Nah.
All right. So when I interviewed, I brought this up. Everyone that's watching this as well as yourself, check this out after. Exclusive 773 is like a store in Chicago that kind of became famous off this
Uh-huh.
guy. They basically became famous off Vine. Do you remember Vine?
Yeah.
Because they have this worker called Lincoln Two Step, and he's like in his 60s. It's this black gentleman. He's in his 60s, and he's just like really funny, and yeah, and he's basically like, anyways, always with like strippers and like just like doing crazy shit and like drinking and just like having fun. And then he kind of became like a thing in like hype culture. So like people would go to Exclusive 773 to that store just to meet the guy. And then Bilal, his cousin, works at Exclusive 773 in Chicago. And I remember like before Bilal even made it to the UFC, I was just like a fan of like what they would post on their feed. And you can find him in Instagram as well. And then one time when he was Titan champion, he came with the belt, and Lincoln Two Step gave him like a shout out and everything. So that was kind of tight.
Damn.
So I told him that, and he's like, "Oh yeah." But
Seven.
anyways, um, let's see what other questions are here. Ooh, okay. Amit Betis asks, "Does Tisha Torres get cut with the loss to Van Buren tomorrow?" So Tisha Torres, I don't know if you know, but she's on a terrible losing streak, and I think
Yeah.
she's a great fighter. But for some reason, it hasn't worked out for her. She hasn't been able to put wins together, and she's still somehow ranked. And she is, I think, on a. Let me see. Let me pull this up so I'm not talking
I
shit.
think it's 4 fights, no?
Yeah, 4-fight losing streak,
Yeah.
and she's still ranked. Can you believe that?
That just shows
She's
you
still ranked, and
how.
Angela Hill is not.
Yeah, that doesn't. Well, I mean, we know that the rankings don't make any sense for the UFC, anyways. But that's criminal. Isn't is she married to Rocky Pennington? Is that
Yeah.
right? Yeah. So both of them are coming off losses.
No, Pennington's coming off a win.
Okay, Pennington
Wait,
got
no, a
back
loss
after.
to home. My bad. No, yeah, yeah, yeah. You're right.
Yeah. Um, yeah. That Tisha Torres obviously is a little. That one's a little crazier. Does she get cut if she takes a loss?
She has had a tough run though, because her losing streak began with Jessica Andrade, former champion, Yana Jędrzejczyk, former champion, Zhang Wei Li, current champion, and then Marina Rodriguez most recently in August 2019 in Uruguay. So
I,
it's a
I
little bit
don't know if you
deceiving
cut her
that losing streak.
because how much do you pay her? Uh,
Who knows? I mean, I think probably not like she's definitely not at the very bottom, but I wouldn't suspect that she makes big bucks.
yeah. I guess it's just like some name value for the division.
Hmm.
If she loses this one, though, there is a possibility, right? I mean, 4 in a row. Most people, it's 3 in a row. So
That'd be 5 in a row if she loses.
that would be 5 in a row. Yeah. Fuck. Yeah, maybe.
I think there's some value in keeping her around, as you said, a name value, like just having a win over her. It's nice to have on your record. Also, I think the UFC has to like look at the record and be like, all right, Jessica Andrade, Yana and Jacek, Zhang Wei Li, like that's a tough stretch. But at the same time, dude, 0-5. The only person I can think of that kind of did something similar was Dan Hardy, and that's because the UFC loves Dan Hardy. I don't know if you remember, at one point Dan Hardy went 0-4 in his career in the
Damn.
UFC. and then bounce back with a win over Dwayne Ludwig, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, I mean, I'm sure that Tisha could do it, but as of the last 4 fights, it for whatever reason, it just seems like I mean, she's obviously so much smaller than everybody in the division,
Mm-hmm.
but it seems like people have, maybe it's just that there's a lot of tape on her now, but people have sort of figured out how to tame that. What is it, tiny tornado or
Yeah,
whatever she's
tiny
called?
tornado. I'll say this:
Yeah.
I think there's a good chance that she might get cut if she loses, but I wouldn't be super shocked if they keep her around for one more.
Yeah. I mean, right now the UFC just sort of needs bodies.
Yeah.
And you've been able to see that recently, right? Like I think even some guys that have been getting some of these shots on this last card
Yep.
maybe are people that wouldn't have normally, but because the UFC is in this particular situation in a bind because they couldn't use any of their international fighters at the time. So, not really the time to be cutting people, I don't think, but
Yeah. No, I agree.
yeah.
All right. Another question by Amir Betis. This is a good one. What are your thoughts on Team Alpha Male being able to push an athlete over the top? Is it still one of the elite teams or a starter gym? So this is an interesting one because, for example, we saw Cynthia Calvillo pick up a huge win over Jessica I, on that card last weekend, and she switched from Team Alpha Male. Now she's training over at AKA in San Jose with Javi Mendez. We saw Cody Garbrandt, who also picked up a big win somewhat recently, defeating Rafael Sunsao at, what was it, UFC 250. He's training with Team Alpha Male, but splitting a lot of his time and actually did most of the training camp over in the East Coast here with Mark Henry. So what are your thoughts on that? It seems like, yeah, it's, I don't know. What are your thoughts? Is there something to it that maybe Team Alpha Male has trouble getting fighters over the top?
No. I mean, who got Cody Garbrandt to the title in a year, and he
That's
beat.
true. That's
I
fair.
mean, he won the title at Alpha Male.
Mm-hmm.
So for all intents and purposes, I don't think that they've lost something. I mean, they've got a lot of fighters. These gyms, there's ebbs and flows, right? There are peaks and valleys to all of them, even the best ones. So I don't think they've lost anything. And I don't think that you can say something like they can't get people over the top either. I think it's definitely one of the elite gyms still.
Yeah, I agree. I think maybe like a few years ago they were stronger. I mean, when TJ Dillashaw was there, Uriah Faber was still active, Cody Garbrandt was, doing his thing and becoming a thing. Even when Joseph Benavidez was there, obviously I think that those were like the golden days of Team Alpha Male, and Lance Palmer as well, because he's left the gym as well. So
Yeah.
I think they're perhaps in a bit of a valley right now instead of a peak. But I still think it's a world class gym, like you said. They got Cody Garbrandt to become champion in very little time, and they've done some amazing things. So, and some of the bigger names in the lower weight classes have come out of that gym. So,
Yeah, shout out Joey B. I'm glad that he's getting another crack at Figueiredo.
yeah, that's gonna be a good fight. Yep, looking forward to it. The rematch.
Yeah.
Let's see what other questions we got here. Okay, this is a good one. JP, who comes back to fight first? Nate Diaz, Masvidal, Jones, Nick Diaz, or Cejudo?
Jones.
Mm, I say it's between Jones or
Or
Masvidal,
Moss. Yeah.
because Jones fought most recently, whereas Masvidal, he hasn't fought since November. So, you know, but
Masvidal
definitely
also.
Nick Diaz is not coming back. I don't see it. I don't see that.
No. Who was the other one? Cejudo?
Cejudo. I think Cejudo, if he comes back, it'll be like in a year or something like that. He's just gonna
Yeah.
chill
I
and
think
wait
he's
till
going to wait for that to
yeah,
wait for it all to sort of play itself
play out.
out,
Yeah.
and then he'll come out.
Yep. I agree. Um, All right, yeah, I think that's it for questions. Anybody, last call for questions. If anybody has any other questions, feel free to throw them now, or that'd be it. All right, yeah, I think that's it. So I appreciate everybody tuning in. Thank you, Nathan, for joining me in this pre UFC Vegas 3 or UFC on ESPN 11 preview. And just a reminder, we'll also be doing a post analysis as well of the card sometime Sunday. I still got to figure out if I work or not. I don't know if the schedule's out because I'm back from non-furlough. So, yeah, we'll figure all those details out. But any last words on this card? Anything you'd like to say?
No, thanks for having me, and I will talk to you post fight.
All right, sounds good. Enjoy the fights. Don't lose that much money, all right?
I guess.
All right, yeah, and just a quick reminder, thumbs up, subscribe to the channel. You know the deal. Also, I recently started my Spanish channel where I'm just uploading 100% content in Spanish. Did an interview with Irene Aldana, which published yesterday. She's taking on Holly Holm. So that is Hablemos MMA, and if you go to my YouTube channel, it's on the featured channels on the right side. So you can sub to that if you want some Spanish content. All right, with that out of the way, let's get out of here. Peace out, bro. I'll see you sometime Sunday.
Later, bud.